Thank you, Makena, so much for joining me today and just taking the time to share about your experience with me and the Mentorship Lab and just our 6-month journey together. And I would love to just take an opportunity for you to share who you are and why you're doing it and what you're building, just so people can get to know a little bit more about you and your mission in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for having me. Who I am, so I'm Makena Sage, and I am a copywriter and marketing strategist is my background, and I work with purpose-driven entrepreneurs, so mostly people in like personal development, health and wellness, authors, expert speakers of some sort who are making a positive impact on the world with their work. So I specialize in writing copy for and doing strategy for those people. And the Mentorship Lab. So when I came into the Mentorship Lab, I think, it was end of last year. I was kind of looking at 2016 and what did I want to create. And I really make decisions on an intuitive level about programs that I join. So, there's all the like, oh, which one logically seems like the right choice. But to me, when you had reached out or something, I saw something about it and it just felt like an intuitive, hell yes. And so I was like, all right, this is what it is. And I think coming into it, it was really interesting because I'll just share a little bit about kind of my journey with what I thought I wanted out of it versus what I got out of it. So coming into it, I think there were a few things I knew. Like I knew that I wanted to start transitioning away from just the one-on-one work and the kind of done for you copy and moving more and more into strategy and maybe teaching and things along those lines. So that I had a pretty clear sense of. But I also think I came into the program, it's like end of the year, you're like looking at your next year, like, oh, I'm going to do all these things and all these programs and all whatever. And what ended up happening pretty quickly, as you may remember from our retreat, was I pretty quickly got clear that like, you know what, I don't know if any of these things I'm thinking about doing are actually lighting me up. Like, I don't know if there's actually energy with them. And I really resonated with your program because it's not curriculum based as much. It's not like, let me teach you this blueprint or this model or whatever. It's really like masterminding and support and all the women at a certain level in their businesses. So you can have a kind of conversation that you may not be able to have elsewhere. And so that really resonated for me because I am a strategist, right? Like strategy is what I do. So what I found was like, oh, here I am like creating all this strategy and all these action steps, but there's actually no energy with them. And I was like, I just can't do that. Like, I just know it's not going to go. It's not going to be the thing, And so even though I was really desperate to make a change and, not just be doing sort of what I've been doing for several years at that point, I made the conscious choice at the first retreat or at the retreat with you and the ladies, I remember, to not move right away and to sit in the not knowing and go to sort of the opposite way of being of what's natural to me and be like, okay, what if, I entered this mastermind thinking I'm going to take all these crazy action steps and like, this is going to be the thing that propels me forward in that way. But like, that's not what I was being called to actually do.
Yeah.
And so, as you know, I call this being in the mush. And so I spent pretty much the whole program. I mean, you saw me in the mush, like, all right, every month it's like, sure, I kept my business going. I kept doing what I was doing, but I didn't really introduce anything new. It really ended up being about being seen, like being held in the space of a group of women who knew what I was going through, who, are at a similar level in their business. And then you, of course, who are very successful, but you are all very heart-centered, spiritually driven businesswomen. And so it became this thing of, I think, you guys holding the space for me to not know and to go through this journey of being like the caterpillar that's sort of in the cocoon and has no idea what's next, to starting to get clarity around what those next steps are and what actually excites me. And so this is a really long answer, but telling my like whole journey. But what ended up coming out of the program in the end, in addition to just wonderful connections and being seen in that space and reflected back to me when I would sort of be like, I'm not doing anything or I'm not going anywhere. It's like, no, like you're in this process. We see you, we witness you, to finally starting to get clarity about what those next steps are and what actually excites me. So that's like literally even this week, we're now in July, almost August. My sales page is going up for a new program that I've created that's starting in the fall, the Marketing with Heart Masterclass. And it's really intimate and, no more than 20 people. There's one-on-one, there's group components. It's really like a program I would take, and something I'm really excited to create and deliver to the world, and will allow me to start to make the transition that I thought I was ready to make 6 months ago or a year ago. But I had to sort of go through this period of being like, if I didn't know who I was, who would I be? And so that's been my journey in the
And
program.
I just love how brave you were in that process. And I think something that a lot of people don't know, but they're going to start knowing, is just how intuitive you are, even in the marketing strategies that you share. So we were able to witness that, like you kind of unfolding and guiding yourself into that process, and me just being able to hold the space. But you really like took such an intuitive approach to like the leadership within your own life, of like, actually, because I have a wealth of contacts and relationships and resources, and you were just able to create like a healthy boundary for yourself. It's like, not yet. And I know that that can be so hard when you are like investing and wanting one result or a certain thing when you first coming in, and then just holding like, no, this is what my body and my heart needs right now. So I just know that this is going to flow through everything that you're creating moving forward. And I just celebrate you for that, for just like being in the mush of it all, and to like allow that to unfold in the first face-to-face retreat together, like with women that you didn't know. And to just like, I remember just witnessing you, and you could have
freaking out like all this stuff doesn't feel good.
Yeah, because
you're something totally different out of life.
Because you're so smart and you're so on it. And it's like, when you know what you want, like there's no stopping you. That momentum is there. And like, I love what you say is like, follow the momentum. And so you just had to sit in like your own medicine. And I just love you for it. Like, I love you for just like holding that space for yourself, and for me to just like hold that bigger vision for you, and to trust and to not want to be like, but I got to give you something more, like, so I'm curious, from just our first meeting, because you're like, you think in copywriting, so I feel like you've already like answered so many questions that I would ask you. But what because I know you're in this world, like you coaches and masterminds, and your mom's an amazing leader in the online business world, of what was different for you in seeing what I had to offer. And I'm so stealth in what I have to offer as well too. Like, I don't have a full on like sales page or anything crazy like that. And so, yeah, I'm just curious for you, kind of what you were looking for, and then like what felt different for you to make that choice to move forward and working in the mentorship lab.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, honestly, it really comes down to an intuitive decision for me. So I would recommend for anybody who's watching this to tune in. Not necessarily to your mind, just a lot of what you mentioned. I'm like very into intuitive driven business and following the momentum and your intuition. So it's not necessarily what your mind is doing, and it's not necessarily what your emotions are doing. It's like, does it feel light? Does it feel like an intuitive hell yes? Is something about it calling to you, even if you're not exactly sure why, or it's a big investment, or whatever that is? That's ultimately how I made the decision. But I would say that what initially attracted me to it partially was you. I'd known you from a retreat a few years earlier. And just, I guess, again, it's kind of like an intuitive, like, cool. Like, I like this woman. I like what she's about. I see a little bit of what she's doing in her business here and kind of her approach. I saw you speak then, I think, at World Domination Summit a couple of years later. I love the like love over metrics. Like, even though I'm in marketing, I'm very heart-centered, spiritually driven in my business. And so I felt sort of the shared values underneath, where a lot of programs out there these days are like the make, 10K a month, or make $1 million or whatever those are. And I'm like, yeah, I already have the hustle. Like I'm a hustle kind of person. Like I need the like the space and more the masterminding and the supporting and the flow and the, so I think just knowing you and knowing that I wanted less of that blueprint approach and more of that, I definitely wanted an in-person retreat, but I didn't necessarily have the time to be going and doing a ton of retreats. I like that you were keeping it intimate. I could really feel that you were curating who was in the program, and that felt really good to me, because I knew, I just knew I'd be like among peers and people that I could really connect with. So I think those were some of the things that stood out at me that were different, but ultimately I think it was an intuitive decision.
I love that. And were there any tools or strategies, whether it was during the retreat or one-on-one calls or group calls, where you feel like were helpful for you or that you're able to use and kind of apply into your own business or life?
Let's see. I think honestly, the one that pops in my mind right away is I love the 3-year vision that we did, and that we kind of went back and revisited that at the end of the program. I think, again, for me, it's anything that gets me out of my head and more into my heart and into my body tends to be the most impactful. So that exercise of really looking to see, and like I said, there was a lot coming up around like, well, what if I don't want this? What if I want, like, I don't know. But it was still really helpful. And I think I just can't remember what all we did at the retreat, but I know there were other things around where we would kind of like dance it out and then write down words. And then, I just really I was able to like get again out of my head and into my body and into my heart around what is it that I actually want. And while all the pieces weren't able to come together right away, and who knows, I mean, I don't think everything ever comes together completely, right? One area kind of gets figured out, we're looking at the next one, but it started to give me little pieces of the puzzle in this journey. And then I spent, the months sort of in the mush, as you said, probably very strange coaching me, because I was like, I think I'm just supposed to like sit here and keep doing what I'm doing, and like sometime clarity will dawn, which it did eventually. And you were great about supporting me in that. But I think just those kinds of exercises were probably the most powerful for me.
That's awesome. And will you go into a little bit about just your journey into starting to kind of show up and do the Facebook Live, and kind of like the resistance that was coming up for you in transition mode, and just that process for you? I think just like showing up for yourself and just putting your voice out there, even when you're not sure what's happening or where you're going.
So you suggested Facebook Live to me. And I was like, I don't know, probably a year ago, I had started recording videos for Facebook, and I recorded several, but I was like so perfectionist about it, and I like never ended up posting them. I was like trying to edit them, and it was just this whole thing. It never happened. And so here I am. I've been doing what I do for several years now. I've worked with incredible businesses on from just getting started to multiple 7-figure level New York Times bestselling authors. And yet I've been behind the scenes in my business, totally behind the scenes. Here I am working behind the scenes in other people's businesses. People know my name, but only in certain circles where it's passed around as a referral. And so while I'm someone who's been on stages in my life and been in front of people, there was like all this resistance around just being perfectionistic about it, or like resistance around being seen and things like this. And so when you suggested Facebook Live, I was like, I don't know, because I can't edit myself. But then I was like, I can't edit myself. Like maybe that's a good thing. Like maybe I just do it, And so I started. I kind of did this little challenge, and I started doing them approximately weekly or something like that for a while. And it's amazing. After I posted the first video, I had so much energy. Like it quickly transformed from being like, I don't want to do that, I don't want to do that, to like, I'm so excited to do this again. And I have so many ideas and things I want to share. And it kind of comes and goes, but it just opened up this whole other sort of world for me, and people really responded really well to it. And it's so funny because I'm in the process of putting up the page for this new program right now. And yesterday I sat down to think about like, okay, what am I going to do to start spreading the word and getting this out there? I have a couple of months to fill it and only looking for 20 people. So like, what would be fun again? And like, I don't want just the strategy, like what's going to create curiosity and really like build that energy. And I had so much resistance coming up again. And I was like, what is this? Like, and I don't know if you've ever heard of the book, Turning Pro or The War of Art by Westfield. So yesterday I downloaded The War of Art. I listened to the entire book again yesterday because he talks about resistance, right?
Yes.
Like, I've been doing this for other people for years, but I've never done it for myself, and I've never been visible. Like, all my clients have been word of mouth. And so this has been this huge, like, I feel like that Facebook Live thing was like the first step. And this has been this huge, like, it's probably going to continue for a while of like, okay, like starting to step out, like starting to be visible, not just like posting personal things, but also like sharing about what I do in business.
Yes.
And I think for women especially, that can be really difficult. Like, we have all this judgment, or we're worried about being judged, and it's like, you just gotta not edit yourself and just put it out there, and who cares, right? It's like, it's an exercise in just like getting out of your comfort zone. And so that was sort of the beginning, and I'm still definitely on this journey. So I finally got through my resistance, came up with some fun ideas, and so I'll be doing a lot more of the Facebook Lives and stuff in these coming months.
So excited
that was
for
the first
you.
step.
Yes, it's like the perfect medium for you. Just like, you shine so much, and bringing Sunny on, and just being creative. And I just think it just integrates so much of like who you are, and just that visibility piece. Like, yes, like you deserve to shine just as much as you've helped other people's businesses shine too. So I'm excited for more. Yeah. And that's just like that consistency, you know, of showing up. And I've really seen you commit to that without it feeling like a commitment, but that it feels like, I love what you say, of like light and easy. And that's kind of what you're using as your guiding path. So it's actually been just amazing to witness you, like to just being you. And so I appreciate that so much. Is there anything else that you want to share? Like, if someone was considering being a part of the mentorship lab, or just working with me in general, what you would say to them, or if they were on the fence or thinking about it, what would you kind of say, like, this is for? And I know you talked about the
intuitive thing is the big one, but I would say also, it always comes down to intuition for me, but like, I think the other piece that I didn't mention before around, if you're sort of tuning in to see if this is intuitively a fit. So if money comes up as like most of you who are considering this are probably at a point where you're making consistent, pretty good income in your business, but still, like, something like this is a stretch, right? So I chose to do this knowing that it was a stretch, because I knew that it would also, like, there's this idea in like money exchange, value exchange, and like stretching yourself, that you almost have to stretch yourself to get to that next level. And so, so I knew that by making this investment, it was like, it wasn't like a direct, like, oh, am I going to make exactly X dollars out of it? Although I'm sure out of all of this, I'll make far more than I invested. But it was like, this is going to force me into a different level of commitment to myself, to my business, to whatever, which it has done. And it may not look the way you think it's going to look. So I wouldn't get too wrapped up in like, these are the exact results I'm trying to create or something like that. It's really like, is something intuitively calling you? If it is, like, if it's just the voice of like fear, or, you know, whatever that is, kind of keeping you playing small, or like, I don't know if I'll be able to afford it or whatever, like that's fear. That's not intuition, right? So if that intuition is calling you, like, don't be afraid to push yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit, and be open to not knowing exactly what will unfold, but knowing that because you're intuitively guided to do this, that it will be perfect. So just trust in that. And, you know, and if it's not a hell yes, that's also your own sort of decision. But if it is, like, trust in that, be willing to sort of take that leap. This is a leap for yourself. And I think magic will unfold.
I love that. And I love just not the focus on the outcome or the results. Like, I love making money. I know that that makes an impact in other people's lives and we can grow communities and all of that. But for women behind the businesses that we're building, it's not about that. It's not about those metrics, like they're there.
But it's like the joy and the feeling more at peace within yourself and having more joy with the projects you're actually doing and those pieces too. And your journey will be completely different than mine. Like some of the other women in the program did up level huge in terms of their offerings and like what they're doing and probably their incomes and things of that nature. But each of us is on our own unique journey. So and you've just been a masterful coach, but also just, I think, holding the space and creating the space for each of us to be on those journeys. So
Thank you. Thank you, Makena, for just trusting me to be a part of this. And I know like you're just unraveling and there's so much beauty, and I just want the world to know who you are. And I know that so many people are going to be served by being able to work with you. So I'm just thankful to know you and to call you a friend. So thank you so much for
trusting
me.